So I've been running VTT style games now for nigh on 8 years. I started with um, a Roll20, um, and then I moved to Foundry. Um, and at each iteration, I've really sought to improve the experience and to improve the management, and that's what attracted me to Foundry. It's infinitely flexible and Um, lots of people do a lot of really good work on it. But as a general statement, what I found is particularly Foundry has become more and more automated over time, and my role had changed. I'm a GM. I've been a GM all the time, um, and I ended up feeling like I was providing tech support for my not quite so techie players who were really struggling with some of the more automated experiences on the tools, and perhaps they've become less and less intuitive for end users over time as developers have become more convinced of sort of adding more complexity to the tool to allow for automation, which has the appearance of improving user experience, but I think actually takes away some of that. So, in response to that, and conscious that my job is to understand new technologies, I started to look at building out my own campaign vault and character sheet management solution. And I did that using a combination of vibe coding and some explicit check-ins on particular code lines. But just to be clear, I'm not a developer. So this is me walking you through that experience end to end and sort of talking through what I built, the approach I took for coding it, the design documentation I developed as a response, the stack that I put the tool on, the actual experience of building and managing the app, how I've been growing additional features into the app over time, um, really thinking about security and authentication, and then ending on some really clear statements about lessons I've learned and mistakes I made on the journey. And so this is as much as anything a conversation about vibe coding as it is about role playing. And hopefully it talks to both of those questions or both of those concepts. And open admission, there is an ongoing and very complicated debate about AI tools in general. So for the sake of clarity, I don't use the tools to generate graphical elements. I don't use the tools to make fundamental design decisions. I control all of that, and I primarily use it as a coding platform to implement standard and available information on the web. So, for instance, character sheets are drawn from public PDFs. And I maintain complete authorization and control over how the rules are run. Okay, so let's get into it. So the first thing I want to introduce you to, which is kind of the heart and soul of almost everything I've done, is starting to talk about what was the vision for the product and what was I trying to achieve. So we have here Obsidian, which I'll talk about when we get to the stack. But the product vision was really clear. I needed something that persisted over time and allowed multiple players in multiple campaigns to access information at the same time. I wanted something that could support multiple systems. I run lots of different games over the years. Currently, I'm running 2 campaigns of Pendragon and 1 campaign of Coriolis: The Third Horizon, using beg my pardon, customized rules that I've written for particular purposes. I wanted it to be very conscious of information, so what a GM might control, what players might be able to see, and what viewers might be able to see. And then I wanted it to be as easy as possible for people to access and minimize the level of technical impost on everyone, including, and most importantly, players. I made some really clear decisions about what it would not do. So I didn't want it to do battle resolution. I didn't want combat mechanics. I didn't want token management. I didn't want real-time positioning, and I didn't want voice and video or any of those sorts of things, as I've already had other tools for doing that, in particular Zoom. So the reason I'm telling you that is a sort of really important starting point of any coding job, and I think even more important in this vibe coding landscape that we now find ourselves in sometimes, is having a really clear purpose. And so to do that, what I used was a series of skills that had been published for Claude. And we'll talk about those in the next session when we talk about design and product development. But it's really important to really test your thinking and understand your thinking and be very clear on the purpose of your work and what you're seeking to achieve as an outcome. And then don't be afraid, and this is a really important statement, particularly for people who are less technical. If you're using these tools to generate these types of things, don't be afraid of the stop button. If you think the tool is taking too long to do something, if you think the tool is um, not delivering what you think you should be delivering, or if it's doing lots of work and you can't see what's going on, be an aggressive user of the stop button and then ask it to clarify. And this is the tool I'm talking about now, as in Claude or other tools. Um, Ask it to clarify where it is in its activity and really drive into that question and try and find that out. So with that side note, so there were some really important things that I was looking for. I wanted to centralize the campaign knowledge. I wanted to let the players do whatever they wanted to do, re-accessing the information. I obviously wanted to reduce my own technical overhead, which maybe I have succeeded and maybe I haven't because I've built an entire website and manage it. So have I failed? Probably. I wanted it, like I said, to be able to support those multiple game um, systems. And I wanted to be able to preserve and maintain an ongoing history of the campaign as it went through. And then I was talking about small numbers of players, so I had a really clear vision for how many users I was expecting, and that was a small, tight group all working together on a single thing. And then finally, I needed to make some really clear decisions about deployment. Like, did I want to host it locally on my own machine, which might have worked if I was going to manipulate everything, but that obviously wasn't the case. And this is another great area where I really explored with Claude. Um, but I also pointed it to external websites for advice on what were the best hosting options. And so I am currently hosting on Netlify with Supabase, running PostgreSQL. I've deployed a whole bunch of more intensive security on top of that, and it should be noted I make pretty heavy use of GitHub for the management of my code. Once again, on the advice of Claude, I do that. I have some familiarity with the tool. So if you are completely new to coding, things like GitHub can be a little bit daunting. So I would strongly advise going and learning some things first. But on a tool like Netlify and Supabase, you can actually just copy the content directly or drag files directly onto Netlify. You don't need that sort of GitHub complexity. It's just as the site became more complex and it had more things going on, I needed to do that. Now, just to give you a sense of what that all looks like, I'm going to show you very quickly. So this is actually the site. This is the site as it's built. So you can see that when you jump into the site, you get different pop-ups for different campaigns. I'm running these three and I'm playing around with these two. And I made it so that the players can just link in. They do have to have their sign-in tokens and they can manage it directly. And we'll sort of talk about all the moving elements inside the tool, no doubt, as we move forward. Um, so I think the really important thing out of this bit before we move on to the next video and the next video and the next video, which will take you through those really important things that I was talking about earlier, is I think really managing the scope and being honest about what I was trying to achieve was really important. And the core agenda was to minimize that automation and make sure that I was very clear on it and maintain that focus all through. And there's this real temptation when you're using these tools because they're so powerful and so helpful, and you feel obligated to use them almost in a sense because they're just like social media, right? They're constantly telling you what a brilliant person you are and telling you what brilliant decisions you're making. If you've ever used any of these AI tools, they're intensely obsequious, which is not a word that gets a lot of use these days, but it's perfect for these tools, right? They are intensely obsequious. So really managing that risk and being very clear, it's a tool, it's doing a job. You own the scope, you own the decision. That was my most important starting point and my most important lesson. And in holding to that product definition, really, really, really important.